consciousness is not a concept. It is not something to be studied, memorized, or explained. It is the essence of being aware of your awareness. It is the act of remembering what you already know and what the noise of the world has made you forget. This journey begins with numbers, not ordinary numbers, but archetypal symbols. Tesla, the man often quoted and seldom understood, once said, "If you only knew the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, then you would have the key to the universe." He wasn't joking. He wasn't mystifying. He was pointing at something that language couldn't capture. 3 is the origin, not the beginning of time, but the beginning of perception. The triangle, the first stable form. In all spiritual traditions, 3 appears: Father, Son, Holy Spirit, past, present, future, birth, life, death, mind, body, soul. 6 is expansion, the harmony of opposites, the flower of life. It is not about perfection, but symmetry. Bees build hexagons. Sound vibrates in 6s. The 6th sense is not magic. It is coherence. 9 is the return. Completion without conclusion. Death that isn't an ending. The spiral that curves inward and then rebirths itself outward. 9 is the breath you take after letting go, the peace that follows surrender. Tesla did not worship numbers. He observed them. He saw that reality was built in patterns, and those patterns were frequency. Everything vibrates, everything moves. The only difference between a scream and a symphony is coherence. So what is 369? 3 is the signal. 6 is the resonance. 9 is the resolution. This is not mysticism. This is structure. Physics confirms that at the base of matter is vibration. String theory tells us particles are not objects, but tiny waves. Ancient teachings said it differently. In the beginning was the Word, a frequency, a vibration, a sound. You are not separate from that. Your thoughts are frequencies, your emotions are frequencies. Your state of being is a harmonic. So let's begin. Not by learning, but by tuning. Let's tune your mind back to its original rhythm. Let's unlock the spiral. Let's remember the silence that came before the noise. And let's begin not with theory, but with breath. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly. Feel the air as it moves through you. Inhale for a count of 3. Hold for a count of 6. Exhale for a count of 9. And repeat. Again, again, again. Let that be the doorway. Let that be the first unlocking. 369 is not a secret. It is a rhythm, a code. Everything is frequency. Everything. Your heartbeat, your thoughts, your language, your fears, all of them pulse with vibration. Whether you realize it or not, your entire life is being played out on a spectrum of frequencies that you are either aligned with or reacting against. When Tesla spoke of 3, 6, and 9, he wasn't being poetic. He was mapping a code, a rhythm, a structure embedded in the very fabric of creation. The same code appears in ancient texts, sacred geometry, music theory, and spiritual systems across civilizations. You don't need to believe in numbers. You just need to feel them. Have you ever walked into a room and felt heavy without knowing why? Have you ever met someone whose presence felt calming without them saying a word? That is frequency at work. That is the language beneath language. Now consider this. Most people live their lives trapped in loops, repeating emotional patterns, reactive thoughts, inherited belief systems. These loops are energetic feedback systems. What you believe creates how you feel. How you feel dictates how you behave. How you behave reinforces what you believe. Round and round you go. This is the unconscious spiral, downward. But here's the key. Spirals are not inherently bad. Spirals are neutral. They can ascend or descend. They can constrict or expand. It all depends on how aware you are of the pattern you're inside. 369 is a conscious spiral. 3 invites observation. 6 demands emotional integration. 9 requires surrender. Let's go deeper. 3 is the moment you notice. You notice you're thinking the same thought again. You notice you're angry, but not sure why. You notice your body tightening, your breathing changing, your energy shifting. That noticing is gold. That noticing is step 1. 6 is when you feel into it without running. You don't distract yourself. You don't numb it with scrolling, eating, blaming. You sit in it. You breathe into it. You allow the discomfort to speak. This is not weakness. This is emotional mastery. 9 is when you release the story. You stop trying to win the argument in your head. You stop trying to rewrite the past. You stop trying to be right, and instead choose to be free. 9 is the let go. 9 is the exhale. When you move through 3, 6, 9 in full awareness, you are not escaping life. You are alchemizing it. Now let's talk about the architecture of the mind. Most people think of the mind like a single room. Thoughts come in, bounce around, and exit. But that's an illusion. The mind is a cathedral. It has chambers, hallways, trapdoors, secret passageways. Every experience you've had has shaped the architecture of this inner cathedral. Some rooms are filled with light. These are the places you visit easily. Some are cold and abandoned. These are memories you've exiled. Some are locked tight. These are wounds you've mistaken for truths. The process of awakening is not about burning the cathedral down. It's about renovating it. It's about walking back through it with a lamp in your hand and no fear in your heart. It's about reclaiming every inch of your inner territory. And to do that, you need frequency awareness. Each thought has a tone. Each emotion has a temperature. Each memory has a magnetic charge. And when you become aware of the vibrational signature of these experiences, you can begin to retune them. Let's say you remember a moment from childhood when you felt deep shame. At the time, it anchored in your nervous system as a low frequency. I am wrong. You built loops around that frequency. Perfectionism, avoidance, anxiety. Years passed. The memory faded, but the frequency remained. Now, with awareness, you revisit the memory, not to relive it, but to reclaim it. You meet that child. You listen without judgment. You feel the original pain, and you stay. And then, you breathe. You integrate. You shift the frequency from shame to compassion. That's reprogramming. That's the healing power of 369. And here's the thing most people don't understand. You don't heal by understanding. You heal by retuning. The mind wants answers. The soul wants alignment. Now, let's bring in the shadow. Carl Jung taught us that the shadow is the part of ourselves we disown, the traits we reject, the desires we suppress, the thoughts we pretend we never have. But what is the shadow, vibrationally? It's low-frequency energy trapped behind locked doors. Shame, rage, envy, fear. These are not evil. They are misunderstood. And the more you avoid them, the more power they gain. 369 gives you a way to face the shadow without collapsing into it. 3. Notice the pattern. 6. Feel it fully. 9. Release identification with it. You are not your shadow. You are the space in which the shadow moves. And when you stop fearing it, you start integrating it. This is the real spiritual work. Not bypassing, not pretending everything is love and light, but turning toward the dark with a steady heart and saying, I see you. You are part of me. Let's walk together, because here's a secret. Your greatest gifts are hidden inside your shadow. Your power, your voice, your clarity, your leadership. All of it was buried the day you learned to play small. The 369 spiral isn't here to make you more spiritual. It's here to make you more whole. And wholeness is magnetic. People feel it. They don't know why, but they want to listen. They want to stay near. They feel safe in your presence because you've made peace with your own depth. That's what these videos are about. That's what this message carries. Not entertainment, not information, but frequency, transmission, tuning. And so, the invitation remains. Slow down, observe, feel, let go, then again, and again, and again. This is the spiral. This is the return. This is the path of 3, 6, 9. Repetition is not a failure. Repetition is how the subconscious learns. You were not programmed in a single moment. You were programmed over time, by words repeated, emotions reinforced, behaviors mirrored. You were programmed through rhythm. So now, if you want to reprogram your inner reality, you must create a new rhythm. One that is conscious, deliberate, and vibrationally aligned. This is not about changing your thoughts once. This is about bathing your mind in a new frequency until the old one loses its grip. Let's speak clearly. Your subconscious mind does not understand logic. It understands imagery, emotion, tone, repetition. If you keep telling it, "House, I'm abundant," while feeling lack, it listens to the feeling, not the words. If you tell it, "Handers, I'm safer," but you rush through your day in survival mode, it encodes the chaos. This is why your environment matters. Your tone matters. Your inner posture matters. 369 is not an affirmation. It is a hot practice of embodied reprogramming. 3 times a day you pause. In the morning you speak with intention. Today I align with clarity. At midday you realign with emotion. I feel my life unfolding in perfect rhythm. At night, you release into surrender. I trust what I cannot see. Repetition, tone, breath, stillness. Frequency is not complicated, it is consistent. Now let's go deeper into the language of energy. Everything around you is speaking in vibration. The walls, the objects, the sounds, the silence. You've been taught to focus on meaning. But before meaning comes resonance. A tone can make you cry without saying a word. A texture can comfort you without a sentence. A landscape can bring peace without a single explanation. You are wired to perceive energy before logic. Children know this. Animals know this. Plants respond to this. But somewhere along the path of civilization we abandoned it. We chose language over presence. Analysis over instinct. The 369 path is about returning to that deeper literacy, to feel the pulse beneath the noise, to speak to life through vibration, not argument. Now, let's return to conscious loops. Earlier, we said that most people live inside unconscious loops, but loops are not the problem. It's what's inside them. Here's the formula. A loop of fear is thought, tension, reaction, guilt, repeat. I, loop of power, is awareness, breath, choice, peace, repeat. Same shape, a different frequency. The structure is the same. What you encode into it is different. So ask yourself now, what loop am I rehearsing every day? What emotion am I normalizing? What frequency am I feeding? You are not here to be perfect. You are here to become aware, and awareness gives you back the controls. Now, let's speak of the architecture of reality. Modern science is catching up to what mystics have always known. The universe is built not of matter, but of patterns, of fields, of energy, of informational waves. Every structure you see is a frozen waveform, a stabilized vibration. Buildings are echoes of intention. Technology is the externalization of thought. Systems are agreements encoded into form. You are not a bystander in this. You are an emitter, a receiver, a modulator. Your inner state is constantly broadcasting. This is why meditation matters, not as a ritual, but as a recalibration. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the sough and clearing of distortion. When you sit in stillness, you begin to hear your odd fault signal, the one you've been sending for years without knowing, and from there, you can retune it. You are not a fixed point. You are a frequency in motion. And when you begin to treat your life as signal, not story, you become the architect again. Let's now explore imprints. Every moment of intensity leaves an imprint. First love, first heartbreak, moments of violence, moments of wonder. They carve into the field. These imprints become reference points. Sometimes they are helpful, sometimes they trap you. Let's say your first experience of visibility was shame. You were seen and judged. Now, decades later, every time you step forward, your body remembers. Even if your mind says it's safe, your frequency says danger. The solution is not to override it, but to rewire it. Repetition, emotion, presence. You create a new imprint. You speak a new signal. You act before you feel ready, but gently. You give your body proof of safety. And over time, the old imprint fades. 369 is not magic. It's physics. It's healing through design. Now, let's talk about the E, future field. There's a version of you that already lives in harmony. Not perfect, not enlightened, just integrated. This version of you makes different choices, breathes differently, moves slower, responds instead of reacts. You can't reach that version by willpower. You reach it by tuning. Ask yourself, if I already were that version, what would I stop doing? What would I start allowing? What would I speak, feel, walk, eat, sleep like? That future self is not far away. It is a frequency shift away. And every time you choose awareness over autopilot, you collapse the gap. This is not self-help. This is field work. This is electromagnetic realignment. And it starts every time you remember to breathe. 3, 6, 9. Again. This is the spiral. This is the path home. You are not separate from the world you see. You are woven into it, like a thread in a living web of energy, intention, and attention. Every day, without realizing it, you are giving your energy to something. Every thought is a thread. Every emotional response is a cord. Every obsession, worry, desire, and fear is a signal extending outward, feeding a system. And the system is hungry. We live in an age where attention has become the new currency. But this is not a metaphor. It is literal. Your attention is energy. And where energy flows, reality follows. Now ask yourself, who benefits from your unconscious attention? When you scroll for hours, reacting without presence, who is harvesting your energy? When you're filled with rage over a news headline you didn't verify, who benefits from that frequency? When your day is dictated by invisible notifications, external cues, flashing colors, tones, algorithms, who is tuning your nervous system? The answer is not one person. It's a field, a collective field of consumption, distraction, fragmentation. And here's the truth. No one teaches you. Every system is built on your consent. Not conscious consent, but energetic consent. You feed what you focus on. You energize what you engage with emotionally. You give life to structures just by reacting to them. Even resistance is a form of nourishment. This is the trap. The modern world doesn't need to imprison your body. It captures your attention. It shapes your emotional landscape. It embeds itself in your subconscious imagery. And it does it all through symbols. This is not conspiracy. This is energetic engineering. Look at every major corporation. Their logos are not just branding. They are alglyphs, charged with meaning, designed to bypass logic and land in your subconscious. Why do you feel safe when you see certain colors, shapes, patterns? Why do fast food chains use red and yellow? Why does every tech brand trend toward soft blue? Why are certain sounds, tones, and jingles repeated across platforms? Because repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity builds trust. Trust opens your energetic field. And once your field is open, the download begins. This is programming, not in the technological sense, but in the vibrational sense. Your mind is a receiver. Your heart is an amplifier. Your nervous system is a tuner. So how do you break free? Not through outrage, not through isolation, but through presence. You unplug from the system every time you return to your breath. You exit the matrix every time you witness without judgment. You become sovereign every time you choose what to give your energy to and what to starve with silence. The most revolutionary act in a distracted world is sustained attention. Now, let's go deeper into symbolic reclamation. Just as symbols can be used to program, they can also be used to deprogram. Ancient traditions understood this. They used sacred geometry not for decoration, but for transmission. A triangle is not just a shape. It is a code of stability. A spiral is not just movement. It is a map of evolution. The flower of life and the seed of life. The torus, the Sri Yantra. These are not mystical doodles. They are vibrational maps, blueprints for aligning your internal architecture with universal law. So what symbols do you surround yourself with? What shapes do you wear, display, internalize? Your environment is either reinforcing your sovereignty or eroding it. Your phone wallpaper, your home, your workspace, even your clothing. Everything is signal. Everything is coding your field. You can begin to cleanse your reality not by adding more, but by subtracting noise. Minimalism is not aesthetic. It's energetic hygiene. Silence is not emptiness. It's signal clarity. Stillness is not laziness. It's magnetic tuning. 369 is about realignment, not in the abstract, but in the concrete. How you wake up. What you consume, who you listen to, what loops you engage. Let's now talk about collective frequency. Your individual field is part of a larger resonance network. What you feel affects others, even if you don't speak a word. This is why one calm person can shift the tone of a room, why one frantic person can disrupt an entire team. Frequency is contagious. And here's where your power lies. When you raise your own frequency, not performatively, but from integration, you lift the surrounding field. You become an anchor. You stabilize the grid. You emit coherence in a world of noise. You become a node of presence. You don't need to convert people. You don't need to argue with anyone. You don't need to be louder. You need to be clearer. Clarity is louder than volume. Stillness cuts through chaos. One aligned voice carries further than 1,000 scattered ones. And this is where 369 becomes practical. Every time you enter a space, pause. 3. Breathe. Feel the tone. 6. Open. Listen without tension. 9. Act or speak from stillness, not reaction. This becomes your compass. This becomes your daily practice. You are tuning your life not once, but constantly, like a musician checking the pitch, like a pilot correcting course, like a painter adjusting light. This is living as an artist of energy. Now, let's close this section with remembrance. You don't need to become someone new. You need to remember who you were before. The programming, before the fear, before the noise, before the world told you what to think, feel, want, or fear. That self is not gone. It's buried under layers of distortion, and every breath brings it closer. Every pause uncovers a layer. Every moment of silence is a return. Not a regression, but a restoration. The spiral turns and it brings you back to center. 3. Awareness. 6. Emotion. 9. Release. Again. 3. 6. 9. The body remembers. The soul remembers. Now the mind is beginning to remember too. Let that remembering become your new loop. Let that remembering become your new home. There is a version of you that has never been in a rush. A version that moves without urgency, speaks without proving, listens without reacting. This version of you still exists, buried beneath the noise, waiting for your return. You do not have to fight to find it. You have to slow down. You have to stop confusing speed with purpose. You have to stop mistaking anxiety for passion. You have to remember what it feels like to breathe before acting, to feel before deciding, to sense before speaking. You were not designed for constant acceleration. You were not born to be content for algorithms or fuel for someone else's timeline. You are a living system, a biological miracle, a vibrational field of consciousness wrapped in skin and breath and memory. And this world, this system, this matrix, it knows how powerful you are. So it keeps you distracted. It keeps you scrolling. It keeps you doubting. It keeps you just awake enough to function, but not quite enough to rebel. But here's the truth. Every system you're trapped in is fed by your attention. Every cycle you repeat is anchored by your unconscious consent. And every moment you choose to pause, that system loses a little grip. Let's go deeper. What you call time is not what you've been taught. Time is not just movement, it's vibration. Moments stretch or collapse depending on the frequency you are tuned into. This is why some hours feel like seconds, and some minutes feel like years. When you are in alignment, time expands. You have more space inside each moment. When you are in distortion, time contracts. You are squeezed into urgency and forgetfulness. The more present you become, the more reality begins to slow down. This is not a fantasy. It is electromagnetic law. Your heart has its own rhythm. Your nervous system has its own tempo. And when you sync with them, when you live from the inside out, reality reorganizes itself around you. You become the anchor. You become the gravity. Now let's talk about language. Not external language, internal. The words you speak to yourself when no one is watching. The tone of voice you use when you fail. The names you call yourself when you are afraid. That internal language is the root frequency of your life. If your inner voice is harsh, your field will be heavy. If your inner voice is rushed, your life will feel unstable. If your inner voice is silent, loving, honest, your outer world will reflect that tone. You are not creating your reality through force. You are creating it through vibration. Every thought is a tuning fork. Every belief is a filter. Every story you tell about who you are becomes a blueprint. And this is why most people stay stuck. not because they lack tools, not because they lack intelligence, but because they never question the architecture of their self-perception. Who told you what you're allowed to want? Who taught you how much rest is too much? Who defined success for you? Who gave you the language you now use to criticize your own body, your own desires, your own fears? These are not your original thoughts. These are implants, downloaded from culture, family, school, media, and you've been running them on repeat, thinking they're your own. But they are not. They are echoes. And now, finally, you are starting to hear the original signal beneath them, the one that whispers, "There is more," the one that calls you back, not to effort, but to remembrance. Now, breathe. Feel your spine, feel your chest, feel your skin. Your body is not a machine. It is an antenna. It picks up everything, even the things you're trying to ignore. It holds the grief you never voiced. It holds the rage you swallowed. It holds the joy you postponed. But the body is not your enemy. It is your archive, your map, your decoder. And if you listen to it, it will guide you out of the maze. It will tell you what's real. It will tell you what's unresolved. It will tell you where the fracture occurred and how to heal it. But only if you listen without judgment. Only if you move slow enough to catch the signals. This is the descent. This is the real spiritual path. Not floating above your pain, but descending into it with breath and presence and precision. You are not here to escape. You are here to feel fully and still not collapse, to face your shadow and still stay open, to meet your deepest fears and still speak with clarity. And this power, it doesn't come from affirmations. It doesn't come from pretending to be high vibe. It comes from truth, embodied truth. And truth sounds like this: I am scared, but I will not run. I feel shame, but I am not broken. I don't know what's next, but I will meet it with eyes open. This is the new frequency, not love and light as performance, but love and light as commitment, as practice, as devotion, as energetic responsibility. You are not here to change the world by force. You are here to become a stable node in the chaos, to radiate coherence, to transmit clarity, to become a sanctuary for those still lost in the noise. And for that, you need nothing outside of you. You don't need more followers. You don't need more approval. You don't need more tools. You need presence. You need breath. You need rhythm. 3, 6, 9, and again. Let this rhythm not be a ritual, but a return. Let this silence not be emptiness, but restoration. Let this moment not be an escape, but a new origin. You are not late. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are returning. Welcome back. You are not one person. You are many layers of memory, rhythm, tension, and silence, wrapped together into what you call I. You are not simply your thoughts. You are not your name. You are not the story. You are the one watching it all. You are the presence behind the noise. And yet, this world has trained you to identify with the surface layer, the mask, the reaction, the personality, a voice built from survival, a posture built from defense, a rhythm shaped by the expectations of others. But that surface self is only a fragment, a role, a necessary interface with the outer world, yes, but not the core of your being. The journey of consciousness is the descent through these layers, not to get lost in them, but to remember what's underneath. At the first layer, you find behavior, habits, loops, reactions, the visible part of your life. This is where most people stop. They try to change by altering behavior, discipline, willpower, motivation. But behavior is the final output. It is not the root. Beneath behavior is emotion. Every habit is powered by an emotional charge. Every repetition is fed by a feeling, whether acknowledged or denied. Procrastination is not laziness, it's fear. Addiction is not weakness, it's pain. Distraction is not failure, it's fragmentation. When you become aware of your emotional cycles, you begin to move. You begin to breathe into them instead of escaping. But that's not the end. Beneath emotion is belief. What you feel is shaped by what you believe is true. And most of your beliefs were not chosen, they were absorbed. You inherited beliefs about money, love, power, danger, time, worth. You didn't decide them. You received them from your family, from your environment, from repetition. And many of those beliefs are out of sync with your deeper truth. So now, you must examine the layer of belief, not intellectually, but energetically. You must feel when something is true in your body and when it's not. You must begin to recognize what feels constricted versus what feels expansive. Your body knows before your mind admits, but even belief is not the deepest. Below belief is memory, not just conscious memory, but vibrational imprint. Your nervous system remembers what your mind forgets. It holds timelines of pain, shame, confusion, stored in the tissues, the breath, the posture. A flinch that appears when someone raises their voice. A collapse in the chest when you're told you're not enough. A surge of rage when someone touches the same emotional wound. These are echoes, not failures. They are portals. They are messages from earlier versions of you who froze in time. And your work now is not to erase them, but to meet them, to hold space for the memory without becoming it, to witness the pain without drowning in it, to become the adult presence your younger self never had. This is the practice of somatic truth. This is what frees the field, because beneath memory is something else, something older than the wound, older than the fear, older than this life. Beneath memory is essence, and essence is not an idea. It is a frequency. It cannot be defined, only felt. It is the quiet confidence that arises when you stop performing. It is the stillness beneath the storm. It is the part of you that does not need to achieve to know its value, that does not need to be seen to feel real, that does not need to be validated to trust its own rhythm. This essence is not fragile. It has survived lifetimes. It is what whispered to you in childhood before the world taught you who to be. It is what you felt in moments of awe, stillness, heartbreak, or surrender. It is not distant. It is here, right now, always. But you must slow down to feel it. You must become still enough to hear it. You must stop rushing toward awakening and allow awakening to rise from within. This is not a race. There is no finish line. You are not late. You are right on time. Time itself is not linear. It is layered. And every moment you return to presence, you collapse the illusion of delay. You bring the future self into the present field. You embody the spiral. You move through 3, 6, 9, and again. Now breathe, not just for oxygen. Breathe to feel. Breathe to remember. Breathe to synchronize your awareness with your nervous system. Let every exhale be a soft release. Let every inhale be a gentle return. This is your center, not the ideas, not the words, but this moment, this silence. Let's speak now of truth, not truth as ideology, not as opinion or proof, but truth as felt resonance. There is a kind of truth that rings in your bones, a kind of knowing that exists without explanation. You felt it in the eyes of someone who has nothing to sell you, in the presence of a tree that has stood for centuries, in the hush of a room after someone speaks from the heart. That kind of truth does not argue. It does not convince. It simply is. And your work now is not to collect more opinions. Your work is to empty enough to feel truth again, to become honest in your own body, to stop pretending you're okay when you're crumbling, to stop hiding your brilliance because others are uncomfortable, to stop negotiating with your own soul for scraps of approval. This is the liberation, not external rebellion, but internal sovereignty, where you no longer betray yourself for love, where you no longer abandon yourself for comfort, where you no longer outsource your worth. This is what 3 to 6 to 9 prepares you for. 3. Witness the pattern without judgment. 6. Feel the impact fully in your body. 9. Let go of the identification. Again. 3. Become aware. 6. Integrate. 9. Transcend. This is not a ritual. It is a remembrance, a return to your own rhythm. And from that rhythm, your life begins to reconfigure. Relationships shift. Desires clarify. The noise quiets. Not because the world has changed, but because your field has. You are no longer tuned to fear. You are no longer addicted to chaos. You are no longer seeking yourself in someone else's gaze. You have remembered the center, and from that center all else becomes choice, not reaction, choice. And choice is freedom. So now we breathe again, not to escape, but to arrive. Welcome back to yourself, to your center, to your rhythm, to your field. 3, 6, 9. And again, you are not behind. You are not early. You are arriving right now into the only moment that ever existed. The rest was memory and anticipation, layers of projection looping over presence. You've been taught to live for something always ahead, a future self, a better version, a cleaned-up identity waiting to be unlocked like a prize. But this model of progress was built on anxiety. And anxiety is not the voice of your higher self. It is the voice of separation. It is what happens when awareness is stretched too thin across timelines that don't exist. Right here, this inhale, is your arrival point. Right now, this body is your sacred space. You don't need to fix the past to return to presence. You need to stop outsourcing your power to what has already passed. You don't need to figure out the future to feel safe. You need to uncouple your nervous system from the addiction to anticipation. Let's pause. Let the breath settle into your belly. Let your spine align naturally. Feel the quiet that arises when you stop chasing anything. That quiet is not emptiness. It is your field rebalancing. That quiet is not nothing. It is everything you've been avoiding. Now stay there. Stay with the pulse of your own existence. That quiet hum beneath your thoughts. That texture beneath the noise. That is you. Not the stories, not the names, not the timelines. Just presence, just breath, just awareness, watching awareness. From here, we descend into deeper remembrance. Not upward, not outward. Inward. And what do we find? We find that healing is not becoming something new. It's recovering what was lost, not because it disappeared, but because it was buried beneath false identities, survival strategies, and collective programs. You are not becoming more. You are shedding what was never you. You are peeling off the layers of inherited shame, second-hand dreams, artificial urgency, and systemic guilt. You are letting go of the inner monologue that never belonged to you. You are releasing the voices of parents who projected their fear as discipline, of teachers who worshipped conformity more than curiosity, of lovers who only saw themselves in your reflection. All of it dissolves here. Not with a fight, but with awareness. Not with force, but with permission. You do not need to hate what shaped you. You only need to stop confusing it with who you are. So now you breathe again, not as a habit, but as a reclamation. Each inhale is a retrieval. Each exhale is an offering. You are pulling your power back from timelines that never birthed your truth. You are calling your fragments home, and you are doing it silently, rhythmically, patiently, without needing anyone else to witness it. This is sovereignty, not control, not dominance, but inner authorship. You are not reading from someone else's script. You are writing your own page. With each pause, each choice, each refusal to abandon yourself, again. And now, a deeper truth emerges. What if you never needed healing? Only reconnection. What if your so-called wounds were not mistakes, but initiations? What if the very thing you've been trying to escape is the door to your liberation? You are not broken. You are breaking through the illusion that you are separate from your source, through the idea that awakening must be painful, through the myth that freedom is somewhere else, always just a little further. Pause. Feel that. Not in your mind, but in your chest, in your gut, in your skin. Let it move you. Let it shake loose the stale vibrations clinging to your breath. Let it clear the static of inherited self-doubt. You don't need more information. You need more embodiment. You don't need more answers. You need deeper stillness. The universe is not withholding anything from you. It's waiting for you to stop pretending you're not already part of it. So stop pretending. Stop playing small for the comfort of others. Stop editing your joy to be more digestible. Stop rehearsing trauma to justify your delay. You are allowed to feel good without apology. You are allowed to rise without permission. You are allowed to walk away from cycles that no longer reflect your frequency. And now we move, not outward into a new strategy, but inward into an older knowing, the one that existed before the world told you who to be, the one that hums beneath your heartbeat and behind your eyes, the one that knows without explaining, that loves without transaction, that sees without effort. Stay here. Let the moment stretch. Let it wrap around you like a soft memory of home. And remember this, you were never disconnected. You were only distracted. Now you are remembering. Not a technique, not a system, but yourself. The whole self. The quiet self. The witnessing self. Let that remembrance rise like heat in the spine, like fire in the chest, like stillness in the throat, and speak, not to impress, not to teach, but to align. Let your words carry your frequency. Let your silence carry your truth. Let your movement carry your coherence. You don't have to prove your presence. You only have to inhabit it, fully, now. What if the secrets of the universe were not written in complex equations, but in vibration? Nikola Tesla once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." He wasn't just theorizing. He was pointing toward a fundamental truth hidden behind the veil of modern distractions. And that truth, perhaps, is the key to understanding consciousness. Think about it. All life vibrates. Every cell, every emotion, every thought. And when your frequency aligns with a certain pattern, you don't just think differently. You attract differently, act differently, live differently. That's where the numbers 3, 6, and 9 come in. Not as mystic digits from numerology, but as harmonic anchors, nodes in a system of resonance. Tesla believed these numbers held a significance that transcended mathematics. Some say 3 represents the field, 6 the energy, and 9 the soul, the trinity of conscious manifestation. Imagine your consciousness as a symphony. Each thought you repeat, each belief you nurture, each emotion you embody, it's a note. Over time, those notes become a song. That song emits a frequency, and that frequency shapes your life. This is why many who study manifestation stress the role of repetition, of emotion, of visualization, because the mind is not a passive observer, it's a transmitter. And when your thoughts and feelings play in harmony, you begin to influence the quantum field around you. Now let's go deeper. 369 isn't just a pattern, it's a cycle. 3 is creation, 6 is expansion, 9 is completion. That same cycle shows up in birth, growth, and death. In morning, afternoon, and night. In inhale, hold, and exhale. Consciousness breathes in 3s. When you wake up and say, "Today I'm abundant," you might feel silly. But what you're actually doing is tuning. You're selecting a frequency, and over time, your outer world begins to mirror the inner one. Tesla's obsession with energy and vibration wasn't theoretical. He built machines that harnessed resonance. He knew that energy could be amplified when aligned correctly. And he believed, though the world wasn't ready, that consciousness itself could be tuned the same way. So, what does this mean for us? It means we are not victims of chaos. We are composers of reality. When we silence the noise of fear, of media, of shame, we can hear the subtle music within, the music of truth. And when we align with that music, everything changes. Even sickness vibrates at a certain frequency. And healing, that too. Love, the most powerful frequency of all, does not force. It resonates. It invites. It transforms. This is not fantasy. This is physics of the soul. There are people who've healed chronic illness through thought and belief alone. Not because they imagined away pain, but because they shifted the resonance of their inner world. They aligned their mind, body, and spirit. That's 3, 6 to 9. Now, ask yourself, what if every time you said, "I can't," you were blocking a signal? What if your doubt was just a static field, preventing the clear transmission of what's already waiting for you? What if you're not broken, just untuned? And what if today, right now, you began the process of tuning back to your true frequency, not to impress, not to achieve, but to align, to become? Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in. Say nothing. Feel everything. That silence you just touched. That is you, before programming, before expectation, before fear. That is consciousness. And if you listen closely, it's whispering. 369. Resonance, creation, love. In the quiet spaces between thoughts, something ancient waits. It's not a voice, not a vision, but a vibration. A subtle current moving beneath the noise of the world, beneath the endless scroll of screens, beneath the ticking of digital clocks. It's the pulse of reality itself, the original frequency. Some call it Source, some call it God, others call it 369. Nikola Tesla believed that if you understood the significance of the numbers 3, 6, and 9, you'd hold the key to the universe. But what did he mean? Was it numerology? A scientific formula? Or was it something else entirely? Something you don't learn in schools but feel in the bones of your being? Let's take a different lens, not from science or religion, but from consciousness. You are not merely a brain in a skull. You are awareness, vast, fluid, eternal. That awareness, that field you swim in every moment, resonates. And resonance is not metaphorical, it's literal. Everything in the universe vibrates. Light, sound, atoms, thoughts. Now imagine that consciousness is a frequency band like radio. Most people are stuck on the AM dial, static, drama, survival. But what if you could retune? What if you could shift to FM? Or even higher, to a cosmic frequency, a 369 channel, broadcasting clarity, synchronicity, peace. The idea isn't new. The Egyptians spoke of harmony with Ma'at, universal order. The Vedic texts described it as Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. The mystics called it the music of the spheres. And Tesla? He believed it could be mapped, understood, applied. 369 isn't just a number. It's a pattern, a cycle, the triangle of manifestation. 3 is the spark, thought. 6 is the form, emotion. 9 is the fruit, action and return. Everything we do, everything we are, moves through this trinity, over and over until we master it. You think a thought. That's 3. You feel it deeply. That's 6. You act and the world changes. That's 9. Then the cycle begins again. The trap is this. Most of humanity is stuck in loops they don't see. Unconscious thoughts create restless emotions, which lead to reactive actions. And then back again. But if you become aware of the pattern, if you see the loop, you can break it. You can create consciously. And that's the real secret. It's not about forcing success, not about hustling until you break. It's about aligning your inner frequency to what already exists in the field. You don't chase abundance. You tune into it. Like a radio dial, like a musician finding the key. The world teaches you to do more, to think harder, to analyze and dissect and optimize. But the universe, it whispers. It waits for you to remember that you are not a machine. You are a tuning fork, vibrating with potential. You've just been out of tune. Come back to stillness. Come back to the breath. Not to escape the world, but to see it clearly. The more you quiet the static, the more the melody returns. And that melody has always been there. It's the same one Tesla heard in his visions, the same one monks chant in caves, the same one your grandmother hummed without knowing why. It's 3, it's 6, it's 9, the code of creation, the pattern beneath all chaos, the rhythm of awakening. The mysteries of the universe are not hidden in the stars, but in the mind that dares to look at them without flinching. Consciousness, in its purest form, is not just awareness. It is the creative force behind reality. Tesla understood this. He once said, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there's a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. That core, that unseen origin, may well be the field of consciousness that surrounds us all." Modern science, for all its triumphs, has barely scratched the surface of what consciousness truly is. We build machines, measure waves, map the cosmos, but we cannot point to a single location and say, "Here is where the soul resides." And yet we live, we love, we remember, we imagine. How is it that matter produces such depth of experience? The truth may be far more mystical than material. Let's consider an idea. What if matter doesn't create consciousness, but rather consciousness shapes matter? This would explain phenomena like placebo effects, the power of belief, the strange influence of observation in quantum mechanics. Perhaps what we call reality is not a thing out there, but a vibration molded by collective and individual awareness. Tesla's experiments with resonance hinted at this. He believed the Earth could be vibrated into harmony, that everything, from light to thought, had frequency. The number 369, which he famously revered, may symbolize this triad of frequency, energy, and vibration, the holy trinity of creation itself. You don't have to be a scientist to feel this. Every time you close your eyes and breathe deeply, you are tuning into something beyond your 5 senses. a current, a rhythm. The more you train your awareness, the more sensitive you become to this subtle field. Some call it intuition, others spirit. But it is there. When you hold a newborn child, or sit silently in the forest, or feel the presence of someone you've loved who has passed, what is that? What is this knowing that has no words? It is not stored in a brain cell. It is consciousness recognizing itself. The ancients knew this. The mystics meditated on it. The philosophers argued about it. But the truth is, it cannot be taught. It must be remembered. Because it's already in you. You were born with it. The child you once were felt it before society placed labels, roles, and limits upon your perception. To reclaim that knowing is to return to source. It is to remember that your thoughts matter, not in a metaphorical sense, but literally. Your inner state influences your outer world. When you shift your beliefs, your reality begins to reconfigure itself. This is not wishful thinking. This is physics, filtered through the lens of consciousness. Just like a magnet aligns iron filings, your mental frequency aligns events, people, and chances. The higher the vibration, gratitude, love, presence, the clearer the field responds. Think of it like tuning a radio. If you're set to a low frequency, all you pick up is static and noise. But the moment you elevate, suddenly the song plays. Reality begins to sing back to you. Not always in the way your ego desires, but often in the way your soul needs. This, too, Tesla understood, that the universe is not a cold machine, but a living frequency web, responsive to the observer, not chaotic, but patterned, not random, but deeply intelligent. And it listens. The question is, what are you broadcasting? Because the signals you send, in thought, word, and feeling, are invitations. You may not control all events, but you absolutely shape the resonance of your life. You become a lighthouse or a storm, a transmitter of peace or fear. It begins in the silence within. So tonight, when the world goes quiet, don't reach for distraction. Just breathe. Feel your heartbeat. Let your awareness sink beneath thought. That space, that emptiness, is not void. It's the birthplace of everything. From there, you can begin again. In the silence between thoughts, we begin to sense a presence that isn't bound by language or identity. This presence, often referred to as consciousness, is not something we possess. It's something we are. When we strip away the names, the roles, the ambitions, and even the memories, what remains is awareness itself. This awareness isn't personal. It doesn't have a history. It doesn't belong to you or to me. It simply is. Throughout history, mystics and scientists alike have tried to point toward this truth. Nikola Tesla once remarked that to understand the universe, one must think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. What he touched on is profound. Beneath the visible, tangible world lies a fabric of energetic patterns, and consciousness is intimately woven into that fabric. Tesla's inventions were not just technological breakthroughs. They were glimpses into a deeper understanding of reality, one where thought and energy interact in ways we are only beginning to grasp. This interaction between thought and energy gives rise to experience. The thoughts we dwell on, the emotions we feed, and the beliefs we carry, they all shape the energetic signature we emit. This isn't just metaphysics. Modern quantum experiments hint at the observer's role in shaping outcomes, suggesting that consciousness might not just witness reality, it might influence it. And here's where the ancient knowledge meets modern exploration. Cultures around the world, from the Vedic sages in India to the shamans of the Amazon, have long taught that consciousness is the root of all manifestation. Not the mind, not the brain, but consciousness itself. They spoke of it in terms like Atman, the Great Spirit, or the Infinite Self. These weren't poetic metaphors. They were attempts to describe something that cannot be seen but can be known. If consciousness is the canvas upon which all experiences are painted, then the quality of our life depends on how aware we are of that canvas. Most of us live as if caught in the colors and strokes, forgetting the surface that holds them all. We get lost in thoughts, stories, fears, and plans, unaware that we are the witness of them all. That shift, from identification with content to awareness of the container, is the essence of awakening. The number 369, popularized by Tesla and others, has been surrounded by mystery. Some claim it holds the key to the universe. While interpretations vary, what remains consistent is the symbolic resonance of those numbers. In numerology, 3 often represents creativity, 6 stands for harmony, and 9 symbolizes completion or transcendence. Taken together, they may reflect the cycle of creation, balance, and return. Tesla's fascination with these numbers wasn't arbitrary. He was reportedly known to circle buildings 3 times before entering, and to insist on staying in hotel rooms with numbers divisible by 3. While this might seem eccentric, there's a deeper logic if viewed through the lens of vibrational consciousness. Everything in the universe vibrates. Sound, light, matter, all are frequencies. And if our consciousness is tuned to certain frequencies through thoughts, emotions, and intentions, then numbers like 369 may act as harmonics within this field. They might not be magical in themselves, but symbolic keys reminding us of the deeper patterns that govern reality. We often underestimate the power of focused thought. Meditation, prayer, visualization, these aren't passive practices. They are acts of tuning. Just as a radio picks up specific frequencies when dialed in correctly, our consciousness begins to receive insights, peace, or inspiration when tuned beyond the static of daily mental noise. Tesla himself was known to conduct experiments entirely in his mind, running complex simulations, and only building devices after they were perfected in his imagination. This points to a capacity we all have, but seldom cultivate: the power to imagine, to hold visions, to sustain high-frequency emotions like gratitude or awe. These are not just spiritual practices. They are technologies of consciousness. And, like any technology, their effectiveness depends on precision, consistency, and intent. In modern times, we've been trained to seek truth externally, in data, in institutions, in experts. But what if the deepest truths are only accessible inwardly? What if the answers to our greatest questions, who am I? Why am I here? What is this all for? Are not found in books or screens, but in the silent, spacious depth of our own being? To explore consciousness is to reverse the gaze. Instead of looking out, we look in. We watch thoughts instead of being consumed by them. We feel emotions without becoming them. We inhabit the moment fully, not as a means to an end, but as the end itself. This presence, this stillness, is not empty. It's alive. It's intelligent. And it holds a kind of knowing that transcends logic. Some call it the soul. Others call it the field. Science might call it the zero-point energy or unified field. Labels vary, but the experience is universal. When we quiet the mind enough, we sense it. A vast, non-verbal awareness that doesn't judge, doesn't rush, doesn't lack. It simply is. And from this space, life begins to reorganize. Not necessarily in ways the ego expects, but in ways the soul recognizes. Synchronicities increase. Intuition sharpens. Peace deepens. We begin to sense the interconnectedness of all things, not as an idea, but as a felt reality. This is where the true power of consciousness emerges, not as control, but as coherence. When our inner world is aligned, when thought, emotion, and action move as one, then our outer world begins to mirror that harmony. This is not magic, it's resonance. And the number 369 might simply be a reminder. Create with intention, live in balance, and return to source. Let's continue this exploration by diving deeper into how consciousness interacts with energy fields, and how our biology, emotions, and even DNA might be responsive to this intelligent field. In the silent architecture of the universe, where geometry and frequency reign, there exists a blueprint not just for matter, but for meaning. The number 369, which Nikola Tesla famously regarded as the key to understanding the universe, invites us into a deeper contemplation, not merely mathematical, but metaphysical. When we reduce phenomena to their essence, be it matter, energy, or consciousness, what we find isn't chaos, but pattern. Patterns within patterns. This is not just numerology or mysticism. It is the language through which the universe speaks, and 369 forms a trinity in that dialect. It appears subtly in sacred geometry, in toroidal fields, in frequency harmonics, in the spirals of galaxies and seashells alike. The structure of reality, it seems, bends toward these codes. Tesla did not speak of 3, 6, and 9 arbitrarily. The triangle, the hexagram, the enneagram, each finds roots in these numbers. 3 is the seed, the beginning, the source. 6 is the structure, balance, expansion, connection. 9 is the culmination, transcendence, integration, completion. And together they form a cycle that renews itself endlessly. Take, for example, the digital root method of numerology. Add 3 plus 3, or 6. 6 plus 3, 9. 9 plus 3, 12, which becomes 1 plus 2, 3. The cycle restarts. It is as if the universe loops through understanding, creation, and resolution. And in this loop, we find the process of consciousness itself, the birth of awareness, the experience of form, the return to wholeness. This is not abstract theory. When one lives consciously, it becomes real. In personal evolution, when we begin to understand that our thoughts shape our perception, and our perception feeds back into the fabric of reality, we start to see these patterns not as coincidences, but as callings. Repeating numbers, synchronicities, moments of déjà vu. These are the brushstrokes of a consciousness waking up to itself. Now consider this. Consciousness is not the result of complex biology. It is the field in which biology arises. The more we study quantum mechanics, the more evident it becomes that observation, the act of conscious attention, has a role in shaping outcomes. That is no small thing. That is the same force which turns a formless wave into a particle. Consciousness collapses potential into form. 369, then, is not a code to be cracked, but a rhythm to be felt. A vibrational song that life sings to itself. Tesla, when he spoke of this number, was echoing an ancient truth known to mystics long before electricity, that the universe is made not of things, but of resonances, that we are not isolated beings, but harmonic participants in a vast, intelligent orchestra. In this context, manifestation is not wishing. It is alignment, aligning thought, emotion, and action, the triad of the three, building structure and consistency, the harmonizing 6, and releasing expectation, embodying trust, the sacred 9. That is the path to creating in resonance with universal law. Many today misuse the idea of manifestation, reducing it to vision boards and shallow affirmations. But true manifestation is born from coherence. It is not about demanding reality to change, but becoming the version of you who lives in the reality you desire. And that, again, loops us back to 369. This pattern isn't just spiritual. It has practical echoes. Consider the power of 3 in persuasion, in comedy, in architecture. The strength of 6 in molecular structure, snowflakes, honeycombs. The transformation inherent in the 9-month gestation of human life. These are not accidents. These are whispers of design. We were taught to look for answers outside, to chase data, credentials, systems. But the true science of the future might be the science of inner geometry, the exploration of how consciousness organizes itself. And when we begin to live from this awareness, we are no longer victims of circumstance, but conscious co-creators of pattern. The blueprint is already within us, and like all blueprints, it doesn't build on its own. It waits for the architect to awaken. Tesla merely held the lantern. It is up to us to walk the path. The idea that consciousness is not merely a byproduct of the brain, but the foundational substance of reality, is as ancient as human thought itself. Yet it continues to rise again and again, like a phoenix from the ashes of mechanistic science. The number 369, made famous by Nikola Tesla's cryptic obsession with its power, serves as both a symbol and a cipher, a key to unlock a deeper view of the cosmos, one that aligns more with vibration and frequency than with particle collisions or neural synapses. Let's begin again, not from the surface, but from the very source of awareness. Picture a field, infinite and without beginning. Not a field of wheat or grass, but a vibrating field of pure awareness, untouched by the physical, yet the very essence of what we call the physical. This is not theoretical. This is experiential, if we learn how to tune ourselves to it. Imagine a guitar string that's never been plucked, yet resonates with the entire universe. That string is your consciousness, not your thoughts, not your identity, but the field that makes all thought and all identity possible. In modern physics, we now have models like the zero-point field, where even in absolute vacuum, energy persists. There is no such thing as nothing. Even in the absence of matter, there is vibration. Frequency. This is the beginning of 369. 3. The trinity of vibration, frequency, and energy. 6. The integration, the spiral, the motion that brings duality into harmony. 9. The completion, the higher octave, the observer that unifies all. Tesla once said, "If you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have the key to the universe." But this was not metaphor. It was instruction. Consider how ancient cultures always emphasized rhythm, repetition, and sound. Mantras, chants, ceremonies. They were not primitive. They were scientists of the unseen. They intuited what we are only now beginning to rediscover. That sound organizes matter. That vibration precedes form. If you want to change your life, don't change the things. Change the frequency. That's the real lesson. When you tune a radio, you don't try to change the station by talking louder. You adjust the dial. Likewise, when life is misaligned, shouting won't help. You must tune your own consciousness to a new vibration. That's where 369 becomes practice, not just theory. Every thought has a vibration. Every emotion has a frequency. Shame is the lowest. Love is one of the highest. Gratitude even higher. When you live in resentment, you are vibrating in the low end of the spectrum. Your body feels heavy. Your thoughts spiral into chaos. But when you start the day in gratitude, even before circumstances justify it, You change the field you're radiating. You become a new frequency emitter, and reality cannot help but reflect that signal back. This is why the concept of manifestation is often misunderstood. It's not about forcing the universe. It's about aligning with what's already true in a higher frequency. You don't pull things into existence. You align with the version of yourself that is already living that life. The path is not from here to there. The path is from this vibration to that vibration. Different reality, same you, but a version of you that has harmonized with what you are asking for. Tesla's obsession with energy, frequency, and vibration wasn't esoteric fluff. It was applied consciousness science. He understood that everything from light to sound to thought to physical matter obeyed the same underlying principle. Vibratory fields. The number 3 represents the pattern. 6 represents the interaction. 9 represents the transcendence. This trinity repeats everywhere, in sacred geometry, in music, in the cosmos, and in your own body. Let's talk about breath. Not the shallow kind most of us live with, but conscious breath, the kind that activates the vagus nerve, recalibrates the nervous system, and pulls you out of fight or flight. Every exhale is a form of surrender. Every inhale is an invitation. When you breathe consciously, you're engaging in the original technology of alignment. Before apps, before algorithms, you are the antenna. Your breath is the tuner. Your intention is the frequency. What you receive depends entirely on what you radiate. So many people want to change their lives from the outside, but the equation is backwards. You must change the frequency field. You must become the vibration of the life you want to live. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what are you? You are awareness. That's the secret. You are not your thoughts. You are not your past. You are not even your personality. Those are garments worn by the self. The true self is the observer, the witness, the one who watches even the voice inside the head. And when you can sit in that space of awareness, watching thought without identifying with it, you're entering the doorway of 9. Completion. Non-dual presence. The state of consciousness that is the origin of all reality. If everything is vibration, then time is not a linear sequence, but a modulation of frequency. We perceive time passing because we are tuned into one layer of vibration. But what if you shifted your dial? What if the future you already exists in a parallel vibratory state, and all you need to do is align with it? This is not science fiction. This is resonance. This is the mechanism behind synchronicity. Carl Jung called synchronicity a meaningful coincidence. But what if it's more than that? What if it's the breadcrumb trail from your higher self, guiding you not through logic, but through alignment? The more you vibrate in coherence with your soul's frequency, the more synchronicities you experience. Not because you're lucky, but because you're finally tuned to the right signal, the signal of your own expanded consciousness. This is why gratitude and imagination are more powerful than planning. Planning is linear. Gratitude and imagination are vibratory. When you imagine with feeling, you generate a field. When you feel gratitude for what hasn't happened yet, you collapse timelines. You create coherence between your now self and your future self. And coherence is power. In physics, coherence is when multiple waves move in harmony. In consciousness, coherence is when your thoughts, emotions, and actions align. That's when the universe stops resisting and starts responding. Let's return to Tesla. Not the car company, the man, the forgotten genius. He didn't just invent things. He channeled them. He was not just an engineer. He was a mystic in disguise. He spoke of receiving downloads from higher intelligences. He claimed that his ideas came to him in flashes of light, whole and complete. He would walk around them in his mind, test them, perfect them, before ever building a prototype. This was not imagination. This was tuning into the source field, into what some would call the Akashic record, or the morphogenetic field. Every great idea is already out there, waiting for someone to match its frequency. That includes the life you want. It's not about figuring it out. It's about becoming the version of yourself who already lives it. The question is not, how do I make it happen? The question is, what would I feel, believe, think, and do if it were already true? Then you start being that now. That's what 369 is, not a superstition, not a lucky number, a formula. Repeat a thought once, it's just noise. Repeat it 3 times, you begin to form a pattern. 6 times, you're building coherence. 9 times, you anchor it in the field. That's why ancient chants and mantras repeat phrases in odd numbers. They knew the nervous system, the subconscious, and the quantum field needed repetition to receive the signal. You're not just affirming, you're broadcasting. Every cell in your body is listening. Every field around you is adjusting. Think of the placebo effect. A sugar pill can heal when belief is strong. But it's not the pill. It's the frequency of belief altering biology. Now imagine what happens when belief is not temporary, but sustained. Not accidental, but intentional. You become a transmitter of healing, of reality-shifting power, not because you're special, but because you're aligned. In neuroscience, we know that the brain doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. Visualizing success lights up the same areas as achieving it. So why wait? Why not live as if? Not fake it till you make it, but vibrate it until you become it. That's embodiment. That's what shamans and yogis have been teaching for thousands of years. You don't need a temple or a guru. Your body is the temple. Your attention is the altar. Your intention is the prayer. And the universe listens, not to your words, but to your frequency. That's why trauma keeps us stuck. Because trauma creates loops in the nervous system, frequencies of fear, scarcity, guilt. And unless those loops are broken, the signal you send out will attract more of the same. But here's the secret. Most systems won't tell you. You can rewire. You can shift. Not with force, but with frequency. Every day you choose to feel differently, even for a few minutes. You begin to change your electromagnetic field. And over time, that field becomes your new baseline, your default vibration. This is why forgiveness is not just spiritual, it's electromagnetic. When you forgive, you stop broadcasting the pain, and that silence allows new frequencies to enter. Tesla once said, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries." That day is now. We are waking up, not just to facts, but to frequencies, not just to goals, but to vibration. The question is not what do you want to achieve, but what do you want to radiate? Because that will shape everything. If your thoughts were currency, what would you be investing in right now? Most people are bankrupt by midday. They've spent all their mental wealth on worries, doubts, judgments, what-ifs, and regrets. And yet they wonder why their reality reflects scarcity. It's not a punishment, it's a mirror. You get what you spend. Thought is frequency. And frequency is the architecture of reality. Now, consider this. Every time you complain, you're anchoring yourself to a version of reality you say you don't want. Every time you revisit an old wound, you're pulling energy out of your future to keep your past alive. But the moment you observe this, really observe it, you have power. Awareness is the first step. Awareness is the tuning dial. Tesla understood this. He didn't just experiment with electricity. He lived inside its metaphysics. He said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. He didn't say think in terms of opinions, likes, or fears. He spoke of the raw code of existence. You are not a fixed entity. You are a wave function, a probabilistic field of potential. What becomes real is what you reinforce with energy and attention. This is not magic. This is quantum participation. You are a co-author of the wave function collapse that becomes your life. Ever notice how when you decide to change, life resists? That's not because you're wrong. It's because your current frequency is still broadcasting the old self. It takes time to recalibrate. And during that time, everything you knew will try to pull you back, not because it's evil, but because it's familiar. Comfort is the enemy of growth. Familiarity is the sedative of consciousness. The real work is not about changing your job, your relationship, or your income. The real work is changing what you broadcast. And you do that through ritual, through attention, through repetition. That's why 3-6-9 is not just a sequence. It's a cycle. 3. Intention. 6. Amplification. 9. Manifestation. The ancients built temples with sacred geometry. They knew numbers were not just for counting, they were for summoning. A triangle is the most stable structure. A hexagon, the structure of bees and carbon, is harmony in motion. And 9 is the completion code, the number that always returns to itself. Multiply any number by 9, reduce it, and you'll get 9 again. It's the universal checksum. So when Tesla said 3-6-9 was the key to unlocking the universe, he wasn't being poetic. He was giving you the access code. 3 thoughts, repeated 6 times every morning and every night for 9 days. Try it. Feel it. Watch your field shift. You might think it's silly at first, but so is lifting weights until your body changes. This is mental resistance training, emotional calibration, and frequency sculpting. And here's a deeper secret. The field doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you feel when you say it. If you say, I am abundant but feel broke, the field hears your feeling, not your words. So the trick is to feel it as if it were already done, not to fake it, but to invoke it, to generate the signal even before evidence appears. That's how a radio works. You don't wait to hear the music before you tune in. You tune in first, and then the music appears. The signal was always there, you just weren't aligned yet. This is the essence of 369. Alignment, repetition, resonance. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to post about it. You don't even need to understand every detail. You just need to begin. Slowly, silently, consistently. And what you'll notice over time is subtle but profound. People will treat you differently. Ideas will arrive without effort. Doors will open that were once invisible. You won't force your path. You'll flow into it. Because reality doesn't shift with willpower. It shifts with wave power. The more coherent your field, the more naturally the universe synchronizes around you. And remember, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. Let's go deeper. What if everything you experience is not happening to you, but through you? What if the outer world is not an objective reality, but a delayed reflection of your inner signal? This is the terrifying and liberating truth. Because if it's true, then you're not a victim. You're not stuck. You're not broken. You're simply misaligned. Out of sync with the frequency of what you say you desire. And if that's the case, then the solution is not fixing the world. It's reattuning your broadcast. Think about a magnet under a sheet of paper with iron filings on top. You don't see the magnet. You only see its effect. The pattern, the alignment of the particles. That's how consciousness works. The world you see is the iron filings. The shape of your life is the echo of your inner field. You are the magnet, your beliefs, your traumas, your dominant emotions. These are the currents that shape the field. And unless you change those internal fields, the particles outside will keep arranging themselves the same way. Even if you move cities, change partners, start new projects. Nothing truly shifts until you shift. But here's the beauty. You don't need to fight your current reality. That only reinforces it. You just need to generate a stronger signal, one that overrides the noise, one that holds steady long enough for the universe to reconfigure itself around your new state. Most people never hold the signal long enough. They ask for abundance and then check their bank account 5 minutes later. They ask for love and then scan the room for validation. That's not faith. That's feedback addiction. Real manifestation is not about asking. It's about becoming. And becoming takes time. It takes discipline. It takes trust in the invisible. You have to live as if the future you desire already exists. Not to deceive yourself, but to align yourself. To sync with the timeline where it's already true. And you don't need a vision board, or a mantra, or crystals on your desk. You need clarity. You need repetition. You need emotional coherence. Tesla didn't pray for results. He tuned the machine. He spent hours visualizing the mechanism of his inventions, seeing them spin, break down, and repair, all in his mind, before building a single prototype. Because he knew the mind is not just a canvas. It's a lab, a transmitter, a portal. So here's the question. What are you running in your lab? What thoughts are spinning in your mental machines? What programs are you repeating daily without noticing? Whose voices echo in your self-talk? Because unless you audit your inner lab, you'll keep building the same reality. 369 is the audit system. 3 times a day, morning, midday, night. 6 repetitions per session. 9 days minimum. But not empty repetition. Each cycle is a rehearsal of your new self, a sculpting of the signal, a sharpening of the field. You start with a thought. I am ready. Then you amplify it. I am ready to receive. I am ready to release. I am ready to rise. And finally, you feel it. Not like a wish, but like a memory. Like it's already embedded in your bones. This is not affirmation. This is activation. Because the universe doesn't give you what you ask for. It mirrors what you embody. And embodiment is not a performance. It's a resonance. You'll know you're shifting not because the world claps, but because it no longer bothers you. You stop reacting. You stop chasing. You start attracting. You start noticing that silence feels rich, that solitude feels full, that uncertainty no longer feels threatening, but alive. You start living in a different rhythm, not faster, not slower, just truer. A rhythm where your breath, your thoughts, your actions, your rest, all align. A rhythm where you don't manifest from lack, but from overflow. Because you finally understand. You were never meant to get the thing. You were meant to become the one who already has it. Here's the paradox of conscious creation. The moment you need something to manifest, you block it. Need is lack. Need is noise. Need is distortion in the field. Desire is natural. Intention is powerful. But need is a sign you forgot who you are. Because the true self, the aligned self, doesn't need anything to prove its worth. It already is. It creates not from urgency, but from overflow. Not from scarcity, but from clarity. This is why most manifestations fail. People beg the universe from a place of fear, of pressure, of resistance, and then they wonder why nothing shifts. The signal they emit is not trust, it's panic. But when you drop the panic, when you stop checking the mirror every 5 minutes, when you act from the place where it's already done, everything changes. The frequency tightens, the field sharpens, the signal gets clean, and reality starts to bend. You begin to notice small winks, synchronicities, timings too perfect to be random, people showing up, opportunities landing, doors that were locked begin to open, not because you forced them, but because you tuned to their frequency. That's how the 369 method becomes a portal. It's not magic. It's not superstition. It's physics. You repeat not to ask, but to anchor. You anchor the thought in your nervous system, in your cells, until it becomes your baseline state. And from that baseline, you act. You take inspired steps. You change your posture. You speak differently. You walk into rooms with a different presence, not arrogant, not performative, just aligned. People feel it. They may not know what changed, but they feel something. That's the beauty of true embodiment. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to announce your glow-up. You just glow. And, slowly, the old reality dissolves. Not because you fought it, but because you outgrew it. Because the frequency that used to define you, the shame, the guilt, the fear, no longer fits. You step out of it like an old coat, and you stop arguing with the past. You stop trying to explain yourself to people who never saw you. You stop negotiating with energies that are not your match. You simply rise. And in that rising, you discover something shocking. There's nothing to get. There's nothing to earn. There's only resonance. What is for you will come through you, not by force, not by hustle, not by manipulation, but by frequency. This is why Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. He wasn't being poetic. He was being precise. Your thoughts are electric. Your emotions are magnetic. Your body is the antenna. And your life is the field response, the feedback loop. So if you want to change the movie, stop yelling at the screen. Change the projector. Change your inputs. Change your self-talk. Change the stories you run on loop. Because the only thing standing between you and the life you sense is a story you forgot to stop telling. We must now touch upon another key feature of consciousness, its capacity to simulate. Human beings live more in imagined realities than in physical ones. We project into the future, reconstruct the past, invent stories, create myths, write novels, build religions, and generate entire worlds inside our minds. This simulation engine, part memory, part imagination, part emotion, is not merely entertainment. It's survival. By simulating scenarios before they occur, we can plan, anticipate danger, rehearse actions, and increase our chances of success. This simulation engine, however, can also turn on us. When poorly managed, it becomes a source of chronic anxiety, rumination, and despair. The same ability that allows us to imagine a better future can trap us in paralyzing loops of worry. In many ways, much of psychological suffering in modern society stems from the misuse or overactivity of this inner simulator. It's not the present moment that hurts, but the thoughts about what could happen, what should have happened, or what might never happen. This insight opens the door to ancient spiritual practices that have been rediscovered through the lens of neuroscience, meditation, mindfulness, contemplative silence. These are not just spiritual exercises, but technologies of consciousness, aimed at taming the simulator, bringing the mind home, and aligning attention with the now. When consciousness becomes aware of its own content without judgment, it disentangles from the stream of thought. It no longer identifies with the simulations. It sees them for what they are: mental movies, not reality. Let us now explore a fascinating thread in the evolution of this understanding: the life and work of Nikola Tesla. Tesla is often remembered as a brilliant inventor, the father of alternating current, and a visionary far ahead of his time. But beneath the surface of his technological achievements lies a profound spiritual mind. Tesla believed in a vibrational universe. He famously said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." This statement echoes ancient esoteric traditions, where everything is seen as vibration, mantras, sacred geometry, harmonic resonance. Tesla's mind functioned like a tuning fork. He reportedly built entire machines in his imagination before ever touching a screw. He visualized devices, ran simulations in his head, tested their durability, and only then would he move to physical construction. His consciousness was so refined, so precise, that the boundary between imagination and material became blurred. He had, in a sense, trained his simulator to a degree of mastery few have achieved. Tesla's 3 to 6 to 9 obsession is widely quoted but poorly understood. He believed that these numbers were key to the structure of the universe. Some interpret this as numerology, others as symbolic keys to harmonics or scalar energy. But perhaps it is more useful to view it as a poetic pointer. 3 represents a pattern: beginning, middle, end. 6 is duality mirrored: light and shadow, masculine and feminine, up and down. 9 is transcendence. It is 3 threes, a spiral, completion that births a new cycle. These numbers appear in vortex mathematics, sacred architecture, and even biological systems. Consciousness, like these numbers, seems to operate in cycles and spirals. Evolution is not linear. It moves in recursive loops. We revisit old themes at higher levels of complexity. Healing, too, is rarely a straight path. We spiral through stages of awareness, and each turn of the spiral brings a deeper seeing. In the hero's journey, the return to the village after the quest is never simply going back. It is arriving anew as a transformed being. Consciousness expands by contracting, by cycling inward to emerge outward with more clarity. This cyclical spiral mirrors the structure of the DNA helix, the orbits of celestial bodies, the whirls of galaxies. It is the blueprint of creation itself. Tesla, mystics, and metaphysicians saw this and tried to express it through math, myth, or metaphor. Modern science now confirms what the ancients intuited, that reality is layered, patterned, interconnected. In this web of energy and form, your consciousness is both the observer and the observed. When you direct attention to a part of the field, that part responds. This is not just poetic, it is literal at the quantum level. The observer effect shows that subatomic particles behave differently when measured. Consciousness collapses probability into actuality. This has staggering implications. It means your attention is not passive. It is participatory. You co-create your experience, by how you focus your awareness. But this co-creation is often hijacked. Media, algorithms, social conditioning, they all aim to control your attention, to occupy your simulator. In doing so, they shape your inner world, and therefore your outer actions. A distracted consciousness is a disempowered one. It becomes a puppet of suggestion rather than a sovereign agent of creation. This is why reclaiming your attention is an act of rebellion. It is the first step in reclaiming your reality. Let's anchor this with an example. Consider your morning routine. If the first thing you do is check your phone, scroll through noise, absorb others' thoughts, you are programming your simulator with random, uncurated data. Your day begins not with clarity, but with reaction. But if you start the day in stillness, even 5 minutes of breath, silence, or journaling, you are training your consciousness to lead, not follow. You are choosing the tone rather than being swept by it. Over time, this rewires the simulator. It becomes more stable, more attuned to truth, less reactive to chaos. This is the deeper purpose of spiritual practice, not escape, but mastery. The mastery of attention. The ability to witness thought without becoming it. The ability to act from clarity, not compulsion. The ability to remain grounded while the world swirls. This is what Tesla had. This is what mystics across cultures cultivated. It's not a talent. It's a discipline. And it begins with the recognition that your consciousness is not your thoughts. You are the field within which thought arises. There's a reason why ancient teachings, mystical traditions, and even modern quantum theories point toward the same silent truth, that reality is far more flexible, fluid, and consciousness-dependent than we've been led to believe. It's not simply that we create our own reality in a vague motivational sense, but that the structure of reality itself responds to intention, coherence, and resonance, just like a tuning fork vibrating in sympathy with another. Let us consider the concept of coherence. In heart-brain coherence studies, it has been shown that when our emotional and cognitive systems are aligned, our electromagnetic field becomes more organized, more powerful. This isn't just biofeedback jargon. This is science touching the mystical, because it means that when your heart, your mind, and your body are in alignment, the field around you becomes capable of influencing other fields. You become, in effect, a transmitter, not just of thoughts or feelings, but of organized energy. And that organized energy has consequences. It changes your perception. It influences outcomes. It guides behavior, not only your own, but of those who interact with your field. Now, if you tie that idea back to Tesla's vision of a universe vibrating with energy, where frequency is the real currency of creation, it all begins to make sense. If you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That was Tesla's most powerful quote, and he meant it literally, not metaphorically. He was talking about resonance, about tuning, about being in harmony with the fundamental rhythm of the universe. When you are in resonance with something, whether that be a person, a goal, a place, a frequency, energy flows. When you are out of resonance, energy resists. And most people live their entire lives out of tune. They are acting on borrowed scripts, operating from outdated beliefs, trying to manifest desires that don't belong to their authentic self. And that's why their reality feels so fragmented. That's why they keep repeating cycles. Because consciousness out of alignment is like an instrument out of tune. It might still make sound, but it won't make music. The 3-6-9 pattern, in this sense, is a map, not a destination. It's the reminder that creation happens in spirals, that growth isn't linear, that understanding requires layers. The number 3 is the seed, the intention. The number 6 is the field, the emotion, the magnetism, the coherence. And the number 9 is the culmination, the manifestation, the echo, the reflection of all previous frequencies brought into form. You cannot cheat this process. You cannot bypass it with wishful thinking. It requires coherence of the entire system. Intention without emotion is weak. Emotion without intention is chaotic. Both without action are useless. But when you merge them, when you intend with clarity, feel with depth, and act with consistency, something changes. The field responds. Synchronicity increases. Resistance fades. And life begins to flow again. This is not magic. This is natural law. In ancient cultures, they understood this rhythm. The medicine wheel, the mandala, the spiral, the labyrinth. All of them are visual representations of how energy moves through creation, always inward, then outward, always contracting, then expanding. Life breathes. So must we. Every desire we have must pass through a rhythm of gestation. The 3 to 6 9 reminds us that the most powerful manifestations are not forced, they are tuned. And in that tuning process, there is something deeply humbling. Because you begin to realize that you are not the creator in the sense of ego. You are the conduit. You are the lens. You are the channel through which life flows, interprets itself, and returns to source. When Tesla spoke of 369, he wasn't giving us a code to crack the stock market or win the lottery. He was pointing us to a deeper geometry of life, a vibrational architecture that underlies everything. He was giving us keys to perception, keys to transformation, and keys to responsibility. Because if you truly accept that consciousness creates reality, then the world you see is a mirror, not a prison, not a punishment, but a precise reflection of your own resonance. So the question isn't just, what do I want? The real question is, what am I tuned to? What if we told you that your thoughts are not really yours? That most of what you believe, feel, and desire has been programmed, subtly installed through repetition, environment, language, and social pressure? And what if we told you this programming runs so deep that even your attempts to break free are often just new versions of the same trap? This is the paradox of awakening. To recognize the bars of the cage is the first step. But to dissolve the very identity that clings to the bars, that's the work of a lifetime. It's not about rebellion. It's not about escape. It's about transmutation. The old self doesn't get to ride along. It has to die, piece by piece, story by story. So many speak of ascension, but ascend to what? A new frequency? A new set of beliefs? Or is it simply the deep silence behind all stories, behind even the storyteller? Tesla knew something, not just about electricity or engineering, but about vibration. He said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Not metaphorically, literally. Everything is vibration. From your heartbeat to your fears. From the light of the stars to the anger you carry in your chest. But vibration responds to structure, and structure is what belief systems are. Mental architecture, shaping your reality, whether you're aware of it or not. So what happens when you change the structure? What happens when you stop believing you're broken? When you stop repeating that you're not enough? When you stop chasing and start listening? You begin to vibrate differently, and the world, without effort, starts to reflect that back. Not because it changed, but because you did. This is the secret behind Consciousness 369. It is not a technique. It is not a religion. It is a language of alignment, a frequency that the soul remembers even when the mind forgets. The triad, 3, 6, 9, are not just numbers. They are rhythms, cycles, doors. 3 is the structure. 6 is the motion. 9 is the transcendence, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, mind, heart, being. Most people live trapped between 3 and 6. They build and they feel. They plan and they react. But they rarely reach 9, because 9 requires surrender. Not passive surrender, sacred surrender. The kind that lets go of identity without losing awareness. The kind that stops needing to win and starts seeking truth. The kind that forgives not for others, but to untie the karmic knots binding your own wings. When Tesla spoke of 369, he wasn't just hinting at mechanical energy. He was pointing to the architecture of creation, to the blueprint that underlies manifestation itself. You don't manifest with your desires alone. You manifest with your resonance. And your resonance is determined by your alignment. If your mind says yes, but your body says no, there is dissonance. If your words say abundance, but your nervous system is stuck in survival, there is contradiction. The universe doesn't listen to what you say. It listens to what you are. Becoming aware of that is the beginning of everything, not as a cliché, as a deep cellular awakening. This is why ancient traditions spoke less about thinking positively and more about clearing the vessel, purifying, emptying, because only an empty cup can receive new water. Only a silent mind can hear the voice beneath all voices. Only an honest soul can align with its true path. So we return to the question, who are you, really? Not your name, not your job, not your trauma, not your triumphs. Who are you when the lights are off and there's no one left to impress? Who are you when you're not performing? Not protecting? Not pretending? That answer won't come in a single flash. It arrives like dew, drop by drop, in quiet moments, in gut-wrenching honesty, in the tears that fall when you realize you've been at war with yourself. But this is good, because that war is what ends when consciousness begins, not abstractly, but actually. There's no enlightenment without facing your shadows, no liberation without walking through the prisons you built with your own hands, no peace without integrating the pain. Most people avoid this work, not because they're lazy, but because it's terrifying. To dismantle your false self is to die a little, to give up the masks you thought kept you safe, to step into a field of not knowing, where nothing is guaranteed but your own naked truth. But it is there, and only there, that the 369 begins to activate, not externally, internally. 3, I see. 6, I feel. 9, I become. And when you become, you don't have to chase anymore. You draw, you attract, you emit. Just like Tesla's coils, you broadcast. You are the signal. No one tells you this in school. No one teaches it in textbooks. Because if you remembered your power, systems would crumble. If you remembered your voice, the noise would lose its hold. If you remembered your nature, you would no longer seek approval from broken mirrors. This is not motivation. It is a transmission, a reminder, a return, back to center, back to resonance, back to the original code. Consciousness is not a destination. It's a frequency. And the tuning fork is in your hands.
Roche Sauvage. Doesn't speak to everyone. Only to those who feel.